Damien ruins horror movies.
Happy New Year! Even though by the time this comes out, it will technically be the third week of January. But there's still 2 more to go. I took a week off to just chill out, and I got my Netflix back and been watching Cobra Kai. I know it's not horror, but it's fucking awesome. And I've watched the first 2 seasons. I started the 3rd season last night, but I got the first 2 down. It's good. I love it. I highly suggest it, especially if you're an 80s kid like me. Go watch some Cobra Kai. But not yet. First, you gotta watch this video. Because tonight's movie is Chain Letter. It came out in 2010. But first, go ahead and subscribe because these videos are getting flakier and flakier and more unpredictable. And I apologize. But that's just the way it is right now. And isn't it more fun that way? So this film opens with... There's like a lady taking a shower, getting ready for work. And there's a man... I don't know. They're a couple. And they head out the front door. They kiss each other goodbye. They each get in their own cars. Unbeknownst to them, there's a chain attached to each car. And inside the garage is a body. It's a girl. It's their daughter. And it's chained. I think there was chains on her wrist. I don't know. Each ankle is attached to each car. Daddy gets the right, mommy gets the left. They don't know it though. The garage door is open about that much. And at first I was kind of like, well, wouldn't they know? But I think it's kind of not too unrealistic that they could walk to their car, not think anything about the garage being up, not see the chains. It makes me wonder, like, where's the path? It's like, you can't see the back of the car because they do go around to the fronts of their car. So they say goodbye. They get in their cars. They start to drive at the end of the driveway, and they're dragging the daughter behind, and she sits up and smacks the garage door, which puts her down. They get to the end of the driveway, and a red car comes up, and they have to stomp on their brakes so they don't hit them. And then at that point, the mom she looks. The dad's like, "What the fuck?" He's like, "All right, I'm going to go to work." But before he pushes the accelerator, his mom looks back, and she sees the chain that's leading to her daughter. She's like, "Oh shit!" And this is kind of a neat way to do it because, like, what's worse? I mean, it's better that instead of then they drove to work and when they got home they realized that they killed their daughter. Like, the mom actually sees, but she's helpless. There's nothing she can do about it. Her daughter is about to get torn in half as her husband drives off, and she can't do anything. She can't get his attention. There's not enough time to call him on the cell phone. He takes off, rips her in half. It's gross. This movie's got some pretty good kills in it. Actually, the kills are pretty good. The opening credits go, and we meet Jessie, who's talking on the phone to her pal, Rachel. And they start out talking, I don't know, just about online stuff. Because her friend's like on online dating. Because this movie starts pretty quickly, gets into like technology. And the first 10 minutes is just downright preachy. Because I think before we get to Jesse and Rachel, we see like these news clips and throwing all this stuff about basically like, because this is a post 9/11 movie that is aware of 9/11. Doesn't mention it too much, and it's post Y2K, so there's so there's references to that about technology and the collapse of society and GPS and the Patriot Act that was passed where, Big Brother is watching. How much of your freedom are you willing to give away for the sake of safety? The Unabomber, hackers, how safe is your computer? Who's watching you? And this came out in 2010, which means it was probably written 2008, 2009. Probably like 2009. I don't know how long it takes normal people to write scripts. I don't know how long it takes because the guy who wrote this, Dion Taylor, has written lots of other movies. He's also has a few projects with Flavor Flav. Now in 2009, MySpace wasn't dead yet. So there are references to MySpace. And it sounds like he wrote this more like 2008, 2009, because there's no reference to Facebook. Well, actually, I think there's one. Yeah, because he says my face, your space, or something. But Facebook is still pretty new. Because if you look back, I mean, everybody that you know on Facebook, most of them was like joined in 2009. So on top of everything else, we're on the verge of social media, where before, because this movie's kind of preaching, it's pretty preachy for like the first 10 minutes. It's almost over the top where it's like, okay, I get it. Technology's bad. Because this is a sci-fi movie in a horror movie costume. I mean, granted, it is a slasher. It's got all those elements, but it's like, because most sci-fi movies are like a warning against technology. You know, Terminator, The Fly. All of them are just like, most are warning, like, technology bad. It's technology's not really bad. It's what you do with it is bad. But it creates levels to like how much worse we can be. You know, I mean, think about. I'm gonna wait for this car to shut the fuck up. If you think about just the technology we use in wars, which in a way has made us safer. It's made it safer for us when we're attacking people. It's not safer for the people getting attacked. Anyway, where am I going with this? Okay, anyway, it's very anti-technology. It's a warning. It's a preach. And it's before Facebook. Well, it hits around Facebook, but MySpace is still around. The warnings are of everybody who's watching you through the internet, and it's kind of ahead of its time, I guess, because it's not even at the point yet where it's like, well, now there's Facebook where we're all volunteering this information. Like, hey, guess where I am? Just got to the airport. Hey, I'm eating at this restaurant. Blah, 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 blah. Just handing over the information to Big Brother. Big Brother don't need a camera in your house. He can just view all your Facebook accounts. He knows exactly what's up. And some people are worse about this than others. So after Rachel and Jesse get done talking on the phone, we go to the next day at school and we meet the rest of the group, the core group of friends that this story is focusing on. We meet Johnny and Michael, and then Rachel shows up, and then we meet, I forget the exact layout, but we see Jesse again, and then we meet this weird, like, rebel, the soft-spoken rebel who's trying to hook up with Jesse. His name's Dante. He's like, hey, Jesse. He's like a watered down Luke Perry from 90210. Hey, Jesse. I've been working on my car. When I get it, I can get you. I don't know, which is kind of funny because the second time I was watching this, actually he's a third because I watched this movie a long time ago. But I noticed nobody in this movie, other than parents, has a car, and these kids aren't like freshmen; they're like seniors. And I was like, how come nobody has a car? Which doesn't really matter. And the one guy that does have a car, his car doesn't work, so he's working on it. But they go to class, and that's when the teacher we meet. I don't know the teacher's name, damn it. But he gets really preachy, and he does this thing that signals it out so nobody's phone works. And by the way, most of the people in this movie have flip phones, which is kind of funny. It's like, what were you doing on a flip? Because I remember my flip phone. Not a lot going on in there. Wasn't a lot I could do. Wasn't like, oh. I never got on my flip phone and thought Big Brother was watching me. It was always like, I remember because I didn't know, like when I would see selfies, I was like, how did that person take that picture? I was amazed. I was like, there's no way. Because with mine, you couldn't see it because it was a flip phone. So I was like, if I tried to take a picture of myself, it would take, he had no idea where you were in frame. So it was like, nope, that didn't work. Nope, that didn't work. That didn't work. And then the little picture was so shitty anyway. It was because it was like this big, like literally. The teacher's kind of like the way that he goes on, he's kind of like this red herring / harbinger / it's like, well, what's going on? Like, because immediately you're like, there's a killer going around. It's obviously this guy. because he does warn them. He's like, you guys only see the good in technology. But where there's good, there's also a bad side. So after school later that night, Neil, who I didn't mention, he's not part of the group, but he's part of the story. He's Rachel's brother, and he's playing online games. And then she barges in on him, and she's like, hey, but, before she barges in, though, he gets this, like, chain letter. And a chain letter is like a thing that's like, hey, I'm sending this to you. You got to pass it to 5 people. And then the 5 people you pass it to have to pass it to 5 people. Then those people have to pass it to another 5 people. And it's just like, it gets huge. But in this case, if you don't pass it, then you die. But he kind of ignores it. And his sister comes in. And she's like, hey, my computer went down. I need to use your email. He's like, well, you can't. I'm busy. And she's like, you're not busy. You're playing a game. He's like, I'm in the middle of it. You can't just barge in here. And then so she sees that he got a chain letter. And she's like, oh, what's this? You haven't sent it out? And he's like, no, I don't care about that. So she's like, oh, this is fun. We'll send it. And she sends it out to the other characters I mentioned. And now the wheels are in motion. So I was wondering, like, because this movie, like, this movie's not bad. And it was in the theater. I was like, what is it about this movie that doesn't work? Because, like, the plot's not bad. It has a Final Destination feel. The chain letter sets in motion the Final Destination feel where, okay, now we know who our victims are. We have these main characters that know that pretty soon their lives are going to be in danger and they have to avoid death. And they have the warning so that they can do something about it, but it's just a matter of how they do it. And I think what I came up with why this movie doesn't work that well is because the chain letter and the preaching of technology and all that gets brought in so soon that you don't get to meet the characters. You meet the characters briefly, but you don't get to know them at all before they're already in this situation. You get like 15 minutes and then the chain letter is going, and then we don't get to meet the characters. They don't grow at all. We're just kind of like, okay, these are friends that have known each other for a while. The brother and sister don't like each other. The brother's a nerd. He's not part of the group. He got the chain letter. Sister gave it to everybody. Everybody gets it. Most of it. And in the first half hour, we lose 2 main characters. We lose Johnny. Because Johnny deletes it. He's like, what is this? Deletes it. Goes to the gym. Gets killed. Then we got Dante. Deletes it. Dante, who, by the way, you would think that he would be kind of set up to win this movie, because he says, because he's hanging out with Michael and Jesse at some like arcade bar for teens, which would have actually been a cool place to have when I was a kid or a teen. But he says, well, I don't know if I got the chain letter or not because I don't have a cell phone. I'm against the whole phone movement. So that kind of sets him up to be like, oh, this guy's going to live. Wrong. He's second guy to die. Because when he goes home to work on his car to get it running so that he can impress Jesse, because he's tired of being the rebel without a car, but he gets crushed by his new engine and dies. And it's pretty brutal. It cuts him in half because he like, it's hanging over the hood and he like reaches in. It's like, it's weird because he like hears noises like because the killer's near. He's like, oh, what's going on? I hear something. It's like, who bends over the hole where the engine used to be? It's like, hey, anybody down there? It's like, what is that? Guy kind of got what was coming to him. So there's 2 people gone right off the bat. Because apparently if you delete it, if you're just lazy, I guess you got 24 hours to do something about it. So if you're just lazy, you get easily 24 hours to live. But if you delete it, you're gone. At the funeral, I think it was actually at Johnny's funeral. Was it? No. It was at, I think it was Dante's funeral. Would they have all? I don't know. At a funeral. One of these 2 guys had they both had funerals, obviously. But at one of them, we meet the cop on the case, the detective, What was his name? Blankenship? I don't know. It's Keith motherfucking David. When are we going to get some kind of Keith David, Tom Atkins movie? You know, where they're kind of not buddy cops, but they're partners. And maybe it's some weird horror movie where they start out hating each other, but then they learn to be inseparable. They have each other. I don't know. Kind of like a Lethal Weapon. Imagine a Lethal Weapon with Tom Atkins and Keith David. Holy shit. I mean, Keith David, he asked a few questions. He's on the case, which is good. You know, Keith David, the black dude from Men at Work. Come on now. He's also in The Thing. He's been in a few things. He shows up all the time. I love it when I'm watching a movie and Keith David just walks out of nowhere. I'm like, holy shit! As Jessie works on her final paper, because even though they're all grieving, they've gotten some extra days off of school and stuff, but they still have a paper. And the teacher, the creepy harbinger, red herring teacher guy, he tells her, it's like, hey, I know you've been through a lot. You've lost 2 people. So you get an extension. Which is like, I don't know, maybe the other 2 weren't in the class with her. But she's at home. She's online. She's looking up all this stuff for her paper. And she I don't know, she does this research, like the history of the chain letter, and finds this website and all this weird shit. But then all of a sudden, like, she kind of, like, turns in, like, she's the other cop on the case. Like, she's, like, finding out all this stuff where it's like, oh, well, this is this, and this is, oh, I'm getting to the bottom of this. I guess it seems ridiculous, but, I mean, I basically what she's doing final girl shit, where it's like, I'm the innocent one. In the next scene, Rachel takes a bath, and it's a boobage tease. I'm not gonna lie. We see almost everything. Then she gets in the bath, but at some point she does get up. It's actually not at some point. We get boobage, and then she dies. And then like Jessie has like a sixth sense where she's like, I think something bad's happening to Rachel. I'm gonna call her. There's no answer. I'm gonna call her brother. Actually, that's not the timing of it. She got a bad feeling before it happened. Then she called her, didn't get an answer, so she calls her brother, Rachel's brother, and she's like, hey, are you at home? And he's like, no, he's at some nerd video game, kind of online game in-person thing. Sorry, I don't play video games, all right? And he's like, well, I'm kind of busy now. I don't really want to check up on her, because he kind of doesn't like her anyway. And she's like, well, where are your parents? He's like, I don't know. There are some things. Like, well, I need you to, as soon as possible. It's weird the way she says it, because she's like, well, as soon as you can, you need to go to your house, because I'm going to go there because I'm worried about Rachel. So he's like, okay. It's like he's in the middle. It's like, what are you going to do? You're going to just go there, knock on the door, and nobody answers? Then what? You're just going to sit there? Because Neil looks pretty fucking comfortable. Neil's like, I'm in the middle, like, it's like an online nerd tournament. I'm not going anywhere for another 10 hours or longer. Depends on if they kick us out or not. But then he's like, oh, fuck, takes off his headset and storms out. Gets on his bike. And then it pans over and Rachel's walking. That's what I mean. It's like, nobody in this movie drives, which is fine. It's just kind of weird. They get to the house, but it's too late. Rachel is already dead. And Keith motherfucking David's on the scene, and he starts asking them questions. And now, because before the funeral, he asked them if there was anything weird, anything they should know about, and they're like, oh, no, weird, it's random. They don't bother to say anything about a chain letter. But now Jessie fesses up, and she's like, there was a chain letter that we got, and we sent it to these people, and now people are getting killed that got it. And he's like, oh. You might have could have said something about that at the fucking funeral. He didn't say that, but I'm sure he was thinking it. This is probably the most bitch ass I've ever seen Keith David, because normally he's like taking no shit, but now he's like clearly this part was not written for him. Because this movie really is. I love Keith David. This movie is a waste of Keith David. It's like, why would you have Keith David play this part when anybody could have played it? Like, come on. Keith David's been in over 100 movies. We know who he is. We know what he brings to the table. Like, he must have, like, I don't know, had a slow year in 2010 where he's like, man, I need a job. oh, I'll take this on. Because he didn't bring any Keith flavor to it at all. He's just kind of, all right. Keith David starts kind of snooping around. He meets, I don't remember where the guy came from. He's played by Charles Fleischer. You know, the guy who's the voice of Roger Rabbit. He's been in several other movies. I was thinking he did more horror. He's only done a couple. I always think of, he is what I think Frank Oz looks like, but he's not. Whenever I see him, it's like, oh wow, there's Frank Oz. Not the same guy. They just do voices. Because I was like, wasn't Charles Fleischer, didn't he do the voice for the Crypt Keeper? No, he did not. I think Frank Oz did. Can't prove that. Pretty sure I'm right though. Frank Oz did, yeah, because Frank Oz did Miss. I don't know. Anyway, but he's telling Keith David, it's like, well, there's this group. They're called Antec, and Antec, because they're anti-tech, anti-technology. They're like they don't care. They don't care what good the technology does. They don't like it. They don't want it. They want to destroy it. So Jesse and Michael, they're kind of working together, trying to figure stuff out. She's telling him stuff because they're the last alive out of the friends. Because the friends, you know, it was, I don't know if Dante was technically part of the crew. I think the crew, you know, the group was Jesse, Rachel, Michael, and Johnny. I think the four of them have known each other since they were kids. Dante's probably newer to the group. And then Neil is there by default because he's the brother. And they don't specify if he's the older brother or the younger brother. Him and Rachel don't get along. That is made quite clear. But she goes out walking and she gets in a crowd of people, like when she's walking down the street, and she notices like everybody's on their phone. And the funny thing about it is, because this is made in 2010, so she looks around, she's just kind of like, it's almost like she's discovering, it's like she's opening her eyes for the first time. She's like, oh my God, people are totally addicted to their phones. There's all these people around each other, but they're separated from each other by their phones. But since it's made in 2010, before smartphones were like really the prevalent thing, like everybody's on their phone talking to somebody. Versus like now everybody's on their phone, but everybody's just like looking. You just see the tops of everybody's heads, and you don't hear any noise out of anybody. But back then, it's like everybody's just like and then they like walk by her and like give her stink eye and shit. Like, why aren't you talking to somebody on your phone? And it's weird. It's kind of a creepy thing. It's like this movie, in a sense, it's kind of ahead of its time. It's like being prophetic, except nothing bad has happened from cell phones. Kind of. Well, I should not. I take that back. I'm not going to specify anything bad that has happened from cell phones, but I'm not going to say that cell phones do not cause problems, but it's not the epidemic that this movie thought we'd be in now. We have a completely different. I think Contagion came out the year after this. So what a nice little back-to-back double feature that makes. Except Contagion didn't have a slasher in it. That would have been funny. Here's this virus that kills people. If you get it, this slasher's going to come kill you. Neil is getting like just bombarded with new chainmails. Basically the same one over and over again. He's like, I've already given everybody I know. I don't know what to do anymore. And just the constant do-do-do, do-do-do. It's like, just, you got mail. You got, and I think it says, you got chainmail. You've got chainmail. I don't know. It's weird. And the funny part is, like, it's in The Killer Gets Him, but his computer in his room where he plays games, like, say, where my desk is right now, because I'm sitting at a desk right now, is directly under a skylight. And he's like, I think I hear stuff and blah. And he never once thinks to look up. Like the one place where if danger comes, it's probably going to come from up there. Granted, this killer, I don't know what his deal is. He's like this hacker, nerd, killer guy that can spy on people and do all that. Plus he has superhuman strength. How about that? This guy's versatile as fuck. But you're perfectly, there's a square above you of outside. You're separated from outside with glass above you at all times. And it never occurs to you. And once you hear, like if somebody is up there, once you hear like a creak, wouldn't you be like, what was that? Especially you're already hyper aware. You're hypersensitive to everything. It's like, oh shit, somebody's trying to kill me. Somebody's going to get me. You'd be hearing a lot of shit that wasn't really happening, but you definitely hear like, somebody on my fucking roof. Because the killer's not a small guy. But the killer is up there and he drops like this spike and chain down and hooks. Now, Neil's dead. So Keith David gets a call. He gets a tip. Because the chain, it's an unusual chain that's found at these crime scenes. And so he gets a tip that like a meat packaging plant or something like that has chains similar to has the chains he's looking for. It's like they came from that place. So he goes there. I think he gets a tip. It's not anonymous. I think he gets it from Charles Fleischer. It's like, hey, go there. That's a great idea. I'm going to go there alone. And he goes. And he hears some, like, suffering. And he finds Kevin. But Kevin's, like, just chained. It's like, I'm going to save you. But first I want to know what's back there. And Kevin's like, don't worry about what's back there. Just save me. Kevin's like, it's like, dude, getting those chains off you is going to take so long. There's no way I can get those chains off you if the killer's in that other room. Like, I have to kill the killer first because there's just no way. I don't know how to get you down from there. And even if I did, I don't know how to get the chains off you. We're going to need, like, a whole crew. Just tell me. And then he, like, makes a move and it catches Kevin on fire. And Kevin dies. And then, it's unclear at this point because I'm assuming, because the killer comes out, he knocks Keith David down. I don't know for sure. I'm assuming that Keith David is dead at this point. I'm writing him off. Keith David, as far as I'm concerned, got killed shortly after Kevin. But then the movie kind of quickly wraps up because we go back to Jessie. She's in her room. And she's already knows there's a camera in her room, so she's covered that up. But she's just like... She finally does what she probably should have done in the first place. She just slams her phone on the ground and stomps on it. I don't know if she stomps on it. But she breaks her phone. She's like, fuck this phone. And then elsewhere, wherever the hell Michael is, he calls her. And he's like, hey, it's me. I'm worried about you. Give me a call back if you can. If not, I'll see you in the morning. Which is kind of like, hey, bro, if you're worried about her, 4 of your friends are already dead. How about you take a little trip over there? You're not being paranoid at that point. When there's bodies stacking up, that's not paranoia. That's not like, oh, well, I would come over, but I don't want to seem weird and I don't want to seem paranoid. It's like, you have every right to think that if she doesn't answer her phone, she's in danger. I'll see you in the morning. And this is where, because she goes to sleep, this is where, if you want to watch this movie, because I've already spoiled a little bit, this is the big spoiler. So if you're going to watch this movie, turn this off right now. Because in the morning, we see the couple walk outside, just like in the beginning of the film. And it turns out, because this is an early 2000s movie, I guess all movies are, but this is right outside. This is not a plot twist. This is the reveal. And the reveal is, because the parents get in their car and then you see, oh shit, the girl in the movie, or the girl in the opening of the movie that's chained to the cars hasn't died yet. Because that girl is Jessie. Jessie gets taken after she goes to sleep. She's in the garage. She gets chained to each car. The cars start up. And then it turns out the car that whizzes by and almost kind of saves her, that's Michael going to see her in the morning. But it's too late. Dad takes off, rips her in half. The end. Which causes a weird situation because there was never a sequel to this movie. It's not that weird, but it's like, how often do we get a slasher movie where the slasher doesn't die, doesn't get caught, and we don't get a sequel? And that's the point right now. Like in the notes, if you can think of a movie, I'm starting it. I'm taking the easy one. Black Christmas. Killer doesn't get caught. No sequel. 2 remakes. No sequel. But go. Can you think of any other slasher movie where it's like, okay, slasher's alive and well, he's fine, didn't get killed, and we don't get a sequel? But we do have the Last Brother Standing Award that goes to Michael. Even though Michael, because Jessie was set up to be the final girl. She was in her moment. She was doing her detective work. She was the good girl. Rachel was the bad girl. You know, she's the Betty. Rachel's the Veronica. Rachel's obviously going to die, which means Jessie's going to live. But then Jessie doesn't live. And then Michael's there. But Michael is black, and stereotypically in horror movies, black people die first, right? And we don't even know for sure that Keith David's dead, but Michael lives. The problem with Michael living, because normally if it's a guy that lives, if the guy's the last man standing and the girl's not, usually the guy has done something to be the last man standing. Michael's character does nothing this whole movie. There's no, we don't really, as much as we see him, we don't know shit about Michael. To me, it's like, okay, you're the last brother standing, you get the award, but this movie was written and directed by a black dude. So you making it just shows like maybe a bias, because you didn't do shit. Like, if they could have just shown less in the opening, and then at the end showed how he saved her by pulling out in front of them, and they had to stop and be like, "You're your daughter," and he saves the day. Cool. Michael does nothing. Like, you could write his character out of the movie, and it wouldn't change the flow of this movie whatsoever. So, props to Michael for making it, but like, if ever there was a time to kill a brother, it'd be this guy, because he serves nothing to the story other than just an extra body. Except he doesn't get killed or anything. He doesn't do anything. He's just kind of like, he's there to agree. He's a yes man the whole time. He ends up being, we didn't see an arc in his character where he grew, he rose to the occasion and took care of anything. The killer's still alive. But he gets the award either way. What did we learn? Survival tales. Never delete a chain letter. Don't do steroids. Check on your kids before you go to work, okay? Just make sure they're in their bed sleeping. Teenagers, they got stuff they want to do, okay? All right. It's good seeing you guys again. I'm going to go watch season 3 of Cobra Kai. I suggest if you haven't started it, fucking get on it. It's good. Although I did watch the first 2 episodes of season 3. Not grabbing me so far. Hopefully it kicks in pretty quick. But first 2 were awesome. See you next time. Bye-bye.